This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Bruchim Haba, and welcome everyone. Parshas Terumah. You know, if you made it here tonight, that means you have big zechusim. Because to be able to hear what you're about to hear, this is not, you must have really davened well, or maybe your grandmother davened well for you that you made it here this evening. Because this is a very important and enlightening and ennobling inyan that we're going to learn this evening. Parshas Terumah, of course, talks about the construction of the Mishkan, the Mikdash, the sanctuary, the tabernacle that they made in the Midbar. And the pasuk says, "V'yasu li Mikdash," you should make for me a Mikdash, v'shachanti b'soicham, and I will dwell in them. Now, before we even begin to analyze the nuances of the pasuk, let's just note the following. There are a lot of very important mitzvahs in the Torah. Shabbos. How much space does Shabbos occupy in the Torah? You have some sukkim in the Aseret HaDibros. You have some sukkim in the beginning of Vayakel. You have sukkim in Kisisa. But even if you were to add together all the sukkim that talk about Shabbos, you would come nowhere near coming to a complete Parsha. You cannot make the case that there are, let's say, 100 sukkim in the Torah about Shabbos. And Shabbos is perhaps the most important mitzvah in the Torah, or belief in Hashem. How many sukkim do you have about that? Tefillin, Talis, Tzitzis, Sukkah, Pesach. And yet when it comes to the Mishkan, you have 4 Parshas dedicated to the Mishkan and its appurtenances. You have Terumah, Tetzaveh, Vayakel, Pekudei. What is so important about the Mishkan? What's so important? Who cares? Who cares how big it was? The dimensions of the various vessels? Who cares about the curtains and the hooks and the beams and the sockets and what they wore in it? I mean, who? We need to know the details. So you want to talk about the Mishkan? Give me 2-3 psukim, but not more than Shabbos. And of any topic in Kol HaTorah Kula, in the entire 5 books of the Torah, there is no topic that is given more prominence than the Melechas HaMishkan. Why? I mean, even the shul you're davening in, could you care less exactly how big it is? Do you even know the dimensions of your shul? I don't think so. And even those who do know, you know exactly the dimensions of every room, how big, how tall, how wide, how long. And even if you knew it one time, every year you chazer it again and again and again, I guarantee you most people don't even know the dimensions of the room that they sleep in. They don't even know the dimensions of the house that they live in. Maybe, when they bought it, they analyzed it carefully, but certainly nobody chazers over every single year, 4 times, the exact dimensions of their home. And when it comes to the Mishkan, which first of all only stood 40 years, and then we never had it again, or even the Beis HaMikdash, we had only about 800 years, again and again, every single year, it is the biggest inyan in Kol HaTorah Kula. What exactly is so important about it? When we get to the Mishkan in the Parshas Terumah, so what do? Parshas Terumah, you open up your Chumash. What's the first thing we do? We turn to the back. How many psukim is it? When is it going to be over, right? Right? And then, while the Bakara is ready up to the 3rd pasuk, you figure out, well, if there's this amount of psukim, he'll probably be done by, 10:42. But what is so important about knowing the exact dimensions of the Mishkan to the extent that this is the topic in the Torah that is given the most importance? What is it? You ever think about that question? In almost the eyes of Ribono Shel Olam, right? But the Torah is God's thinking. In the mind of God, what is deserving of the most attention? The Mishkan? We never even saw the Mishkan. We don't know anything about it. Why is it so important? Okay, so the pasuk says, "V'yasu li Mikdash," make for me the Mikdash, "v'shachanti b'soicham," and I will dwell in them. In them, it should say, I'll dwell in it. V'shachanti b'soichai. You know anything about Hebrew grammar? V'yasu li Mikdash, make for me the Mikdash, and I will dwell in the Mikdash, b'soichai, in it. Why b'soicham, in them? And then, there's the next pasuk says, Hashem tells Moshe, K'chol asher ani mareh oischa, according to everything I showed you, is tavnis hamishkan, the image of the Mishkan, the estavnis kol kelav, and the image of all of its vessels, v'chein tasu, that is what you should do. Now also, if you know about Hebrew grammar, if I want to tell you, let me show you something, it would say, Kechol asher ani mara, according to everything that I showed, lecha, to you. Lecha, to you. I'm showing to you. Oischa means I'm showing you. Meaning almost like, oh, look at yourself. Look, I'm showing you to you. Mare oischa, I am showing you. I'm telling you, stand up and look at yourself. Hashem is not saying, according to what I'm showing to you, look at the Mishkan, I am showing you. What's the meaning of this? So, there's a very famous comment by the Al-Shech HaKadosh, that in fact, while the Mishkan was very important and the Beis HaMikdash was very important, as a location where God rests His divine presence, rests the Shekhinah, nevertheless, the Mikdash itself is not the primary location where God rests the Shekhinah. Where is God located primarily? Where does Hashem, so to speak, where does He hang out? Where does Rebbe Hashem hang out? So we would think, the Mishkan. Hashem is telling us to make the Mishkan. V'shachanti b'soichai, I'm going to dwell in the Mishkan. No, says the Al-Shech, God does not primarily dwell on the Mishkan. God dwells, lives on the head of the Jew. He lives in the Jew. More than a building, He lives in the Jew. That's the meaning of the pasuk. Says the Al-Shech, B'somleiv el amroi, b'shachanti b'soicham. When the pasuk says, I will dwell in them, v'loi amar b'soichai, it doesn't say in it. V'hu kihine shamati loimdim mikan, says the Al-Shech, I heard that we learn from here, ki ikar hashras shchina ba'adamu. God primarily dwells on man, v'loi ba'bayis. Yes, God dwells in the Mishkan, but more than the Mishkan, God dwells on the Jew. By the way, that's why the Gemara says the importance of procreating, the importance of the mitzvah of Pru-Revu. Every child that's brought into the world is another house for the Ribbon Shalom. The more Jews there are in the world, the more the Ribbon Shalom is in the world. In fact, the Gemara says, somebody who refrains from Pru-Revu, he is diminishing God. He is diminishing nothing less than God Himself. Because God, He's in the shul, He's in the Beis Medrash, He's in the Beis HaKnesses. That's nothing. Where is God? On the Jewish people. Kol ha-megareya, kilo memayit b'demos, says the Gemara in Yevamos. Anyone who refrains from procreation, you're diminishing God's image in this world. That's why, in the beginning of creation, the pasuk says, V'ruach Elokim merachefes apnei hamayim. God was hovering over the water. Hovering over the water. Why can't He land on the water? Right? They invented planes that can land on the water. Why can't God land on the water? The answer is God doesn't live on water. He doesn't live in houses. He lives on Klal Yisrael. And there was no Klal Yisrael, so God was hovering. So says Rabbi Victor Miller, Zecher Tzadik Livracha. Okay. So what we want to know then is, if God dwells on man, and He doesn't really dwell in the Mishkan, so what do you need a Mishkan for? Right? Listen to what the pasuk is saying. Make a Mishkan, v'yasui mikdash, and where am I going to live? On you. So then let God just live on us. What do we have to make the whole Mishkan for? Forget these 4 Parshas. Let Hashem say, I'm moving in. Where? You. Lift up the yarmulke. Hashem's moving in. Where He comes in, what entrance, I don't know exactly. But what do we need the building for? Hashem says, make a building, and I'm moving into you. So what does the building got to do with it? Okay. Comes along Rabbeinu Bechaye. Rabbeinu Bechaye, one of the classic Rishonim on Chumash, we mentioned many times, that of all the Mefarshim on Chumash, Chassam Sofer said that for 40 years, every single Friday night, he learned the commentary of Rabbeinu Bechaye on the Parsha. For 40 years, he always found new chidushim in Rabbeinu Bechaye. Says Rabbeinu Bechaye, what is the Mishkan? It is a microcosm of the universe. So you have creation, and the Mishkan in small is a miniature, is a microcosm of existence. Says Rabbeinu Bechaye, how many dimensions of existence are there? How many aspects of creation are there? Okay, you ready for this? There are 3 dimensions of existence. Says Rabbeinu Bechaye, there's something called the Olam HaMalachim, where the angels live. I was never there. Right? The world of the angels. Olam HaMalachim. Michael, Gabriel, Uriel, Nuriel, and all those chevra. All the malachim, they live in the Olam HaMalachim. That is above even the Shamayim. The world of the angels, that is where God rests. That is God's footstool, the Olam HaMalachim. What are Malachim? Malachim are pure intellects, pure spiritual beings, says Rabbeinu Bechai. That's level number one. That's the highest level. The next level, going down, is called Olam HaGalgalim, the world of the celestial orbs, the spheres, the sun, the moon, the stars, the planets, the galaxies. You look up into the heavens, that's the Shamayim, that is Olam HaGalgalim. And then, down here in this world where we are, right, I think we are Olam HaShvalim, the low world. Very finite, very transitory. Nobody lives too long. Everything we have eventually crumbles. You buy a new car, it only takes a week, you already get a nick on it, right? You get a new car, you spend, all your money on the car, a beautiful car, within a week already, it's already old, right? Nothing in this world lasts. Everything is fleeting, ketzel over. This is an Olam HaShafel. There's a very, very low world. These are the three levels of existence. Olam HaMalachim, all the way above, the world of the angels, and then below that you have Olam HaGalgalim, the sun, the moon, the stars, the galaxies, and then this lowly world, what we call Olam Hazeh. Says Rabbeinu Bechai, just like existence has three dimensions, there were three dimensions of the Mishkan. There were three areas of the Mishkan. You ready for this? Dimension number one, from the Parshas and within, the Kodesh HaKodashim, where the Aron was, where the Keruvim were. That is the holiest area in the world. The Kohen Gadol would go there once a year on Yom Kippur with the Ketores. That corresponds to the world of the angels. In fact, you had the image of the Cheruvim there. This corresponds, this is the microcosm of Olam HaMalach. Then, a little bit beyond, without the Parashas, without the curtain, behind the curtain, you have what we call the Heichal. What's there? You have the Menorah, you have the Shulchan, you have the Mizbeach HaKetores. That corresponds to the Olam HaGalgalim, the sun, the moon, the stars, and so forth. And then the third level of the Mishkan, Rabbi Isai, is the Chatzar of the Mishkan. What's the Chatzar of the Mishkan? Courtyard. What was there? The courtyard. You have the Mizbeach HaOila, Mizbeach HaNechoshes. What do you do in the Mizbeach HaNechoshes? The Mizbeach HaNechoshes is like this world. This world, everything decomposes. On that Mizbeach, the Mizbeach took living beings and burnt it up, consumed it up. That's what this world is. This world is people, you come in fresh, and eventually everything withers away. That is what the Mizbeach did. Okay? So that is the Mishkan. The Mishkan is a microcosm of existence. You have Olam HaMalachim, the world of the angels. That is the Holy of Holies. You have Olam HaGalgalim, the celestial spheres. That is the Heichal, the Menorah, the Shulchan, the Mizbeach HaKetores. And then you have this lowly world. That corresponds to the Mizbeach HaOlah. Says Rabbeinu Bechai, now fasten your seatbelts. The Mishkan is not only a microcosm of the universe, but the Mishkan corresponds to another thing in creation that is also a microcosm of the universe. Because we know that a human being is an Olam Katan, is a small world. So if the human being is a small world and is a microcosm of existence, then the Mishkan directly corresponds to me and you. And me and you also have three levels of existence. You ready for this? What are the three levels of existence? We also have a world of angels, a world of celestial spheres, and a lowly world. From the head to the neck, that's the world of the angels. We'll explain. From the neck to the waist, those are the celestial spheres. From the waist down, that is the lowly world. Now let's explain. It says Rabbeinu Bechai. What do you have in your head? In your head you have your brain, we hope, right? And you have your mayach, you have the mind, where the seichel flows down into the mayach. And just like in the Mishkan, where does God rest? Mibein shnei hakruvim. God dwells between the two cheruvim on the Aron. When you put on your tefillin shel rosh, God rests on your head even more than He rests in the Kodesh HaKodashim. So you know what the Mishkan is? The Mishkan is only an analogy and a me'ain and a semblance and a small touch of you. When God rested on the Mishkan, it's only to give you an inkling on what is going on when God rests on your head. When you put on Tefillin Shel Rosh. And you have two aspects of intellect. You have your mind, you have your heart. Now, when we say heart now, we're talking about the lave of the mind. Those are the two chruvim, says Rabbeinu Bachai. The two chruvim are the mayach and the lave. These are the two cherubs. These are the two areas on which God rests. A human being also has a Kodesh HaKadoshim, also has a Holy of Holies. What's our Holy of Holies? From the neck and up. From the neck and up is the Holy of Holies, where God Himself rests, where we use it purely for the intellect. Rabbi Isai, then you have a little bit of a lower existence, from the neck down. Now, from the neck down is very important. You have your vital organs. You have your heart, you have your lungs, you have the kidneys, the liver, pancreas, all of the vital organs. That corresponds to the celestial spheres. All of existence depends on the movement of the sun, the moon, the stars, the galaxies. Just like your life depends on the movement of your vital organs. And then you have from the waist down. What's in the waist down? You have the intestines. What do the intestines do? They take food and they break it up. They make it decompose. Everything that is performed from the waist down, you eliminate your waste. You eliminate, you decompose. The waist down represents Olam Hazeh, this lowly world. That is the Mizbeach HaOlah. Mizbeach HaOlah. But, says Rabbeinu Bachai, that is also the point, that is also the place where creation of man begins, where procreation is. Because just like the Mizbeach HaOlah consumed sacrifices, but that brought life to the whole world. So says Rabbeinu Bachai, let's just get this clear. The Mishkan is an image, a mirror image, a reflection of man. Man has Kodesh HaKadoshim with an Aron. What's the Aron? Your heart. With the two kruvim. The two kruvim are the Lev and the Mayach. Then you have a lower aspect of you. The lower aspect is the place of your vital organs. That represents the heavens. And then from the waist down is representative of the Mizbeach HaOlah, the Chatzar of the Mishkan. So says Rabbeinu Bachai, the Mishkan is not only a microcosm of the universe. When you look at the Mishkan, you're looking at who you are. Who are you? You are a Mikdash. You are a Mishkan. Your head is a Kodesh HaKadoshim. Your body is a Menorah, is a Shulchan, is a Mizbeach HaKatoras. And even your lowest part has Kedushas HaMizbeach. In fact, the Shlach HaKadosh tells us that a person's obligation to fulfill the mitzvah of the Asuli Mikdash is we're obligated to build ourselves. This is not some kind of ancient mitzvah. 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, God commanded us to build a house, and it lasted 40 years, and now it's over batal. No. Every individual has a mandate, has a command. Build yourself as a mikdash. The Mishkan is only a parable. If you want to know how holy should you be, what should you look like, how you should elevate yourself, all you need to do is look at the Mishkan. Rabbi Isai says the Shlach HaKadosh, take a look at number 4. He says, on 2 lines from the end on the right hand side, Ki atfilin heim soid hamarkava. Sh'adam aniach hu ha'mikdash. Gam yitaher ha'adam es atzmai v'chol yivarav. If a person purifies himself and all of his limbs, hu b'tzuras mishkan u'mikdash. The person himself becomes a mikdash. Now, Rabbi Isai, this concept that we're saying for Rabbeinu Bachai is not only unique to Rabbeinu Bachai. This is an idea that is brought down by many, many Rishonim. For instance, the Rambam. Rabbi Isai, the Rambam, it is ascribed to the Rambam, there's a certain sefer, the sefer is called Pirkei HaHatzlacha. Rabbi Yerucham, the Rabbi Yerucham of Mir, he brings down from the Rambam in the sefer Pirkei HaHatzlacha. I must admit, I never heard of this sefer. The Rambam, Pirkei HaHatzlacha, you ever hear of the sefer Pirkei HaHatzlacha? I know the Rambam wrote the Yad HaChazaka, the Sefer HaMitzvahs, Mar Nevuchim, Pirkei HaHatzlacha. Rabbi Yerucham quotes the Rambam in the Pirkei HaHatzlacha. I called up somebody yesterday, said the Rambam, right, is Sefer Pirkei HaTzlacha. So if you look, there's a 2-volume work, Letters of the Rambam. In the back is something called Pirkei HaTzlacha, with an introduction how it's a forgery, that the Rambam did not actually write this Sefer. But, in any event, so Rabbi Yerucham quotes the Rambam, the Rambam in the Pirkei HaTzlacha. The Rambam tells us an amazing thing, that if you take a look at the 2 kruvim, the 2 kruvim are represent the 2 lungs, because you look at the kruvim have wings. What do wings do? Wings flap up and down. That is exactly mimicking the lungs. The lungs inhale, exhale, they're flapping up and down. When you look at the 2 kruvim, you are looking at the representation of the 2 lungs. Then you go into the Aron, and in the Aron you have the luchos. What do the luchos represent? What does it say in Mishlei? It says, Kasveim al luach libecha. Your heart is a luach. So the luchos represent your heart. An amazing thing the Rambam's saying. So the kruvim are your lungs. The luchos are your heart. You look at the menorah. The menorah, of course, in the Mikdash has 7 branches. What do the 7 branches represent? Represents the 5 senses plus the sense of speech, the ability to speak, and the faculty of imagination. These are the 7 branches of the menorah. So according to the Rambam, the Mishkan, the Beis HaMikdash, is only a reflection of the man. It's only an image, a paradigm of the man. The luchos are your heart. The kruvim are your lungs. The menorah are your senses, your ability to talk and to imagine. The Kuzari, Rabbi Yehuda Halevi. Rabbi Yehuda Halevi says the same point. Says Rabbi Yehuda Halevi, you look at the Aron. The Aron is your heart. The kruvim are your lungs. The kruvim, says the Kuzari, Hamarachefes alav. You look in your Makamis in number 6. The kruvim are your lungs. And then, says the Kuzari, an amazing thing. As vital as the heart is, as vital as the lungs are, there's something even more important to the human being. What could be more important than the heart and the lungs? Says the Kuzari, there is an intangible item, there's an intangible aspect of man you can't put your finger on, but that is the most critical part of man. That's the human life force, the nefesh. Now, says the Kuzari, if you look in the Parshas that speak about who carried the various items of the Mishkan, the most important, prestigious item to carry was given to Elazar HaKohen, the son of Aaron. And Elazar carries what? Says the Kuzari, the davar hadak shebahem, the most subtle, the finest item. What is that? The shemen lamar, the oil to illuminate. Illumination is not tangible. The Ketores Hasamim, the scent of the Ketores, is not tangible. It's subtle. It's fine. The Tamid, the Minchas HaTamid, the Shemen HaMishcha. This was like the life force of the Mishkan, even more vital than the Aron and the Kruvim. The intangible life force of the Mishkan, which represents the human nefesh, that was given to Elazar HaKohen. And then the next family in order of importance who carried were the Bnei Kahas, the most prestigious family of the Levium. The Bnei Kahas carried the Aron and the Kruvim, which represent the heart, the Aron. Right, represents the heart, the lungs, and so forth. The Bnei Gershon, they were the next family. What did they carry? They carried, now think about it this way. You have a body, you have vital organs, you have a life force, but what encases the body? What houses the body? The skin. So what do the Bnei Gershon carry? The Bnei Gershon carry the Oiros Elim, the hides that covered over the Mishkan, like the skin of the Mishkan, that housed the inner organs, the vital organs, and the Aron, and the Menorah, and the Shulchan. That represents the skin. And the lowest item in the human body is only what's needed for structural purposes. What's that? The bones. The bones. What are the bones of the Mishkan? The brichim, the bars that go around, the krushim, the pillars, the Adonim, the sockets. So says the Kuzari, there are 4 aspects of the Mishkan. The highest aspect is the life force. The Shemen HaMishcha, the Shemen HaMar, the Ketores Hasamim. That is carried by Elazar. Then you have the Aron and the Kruvim that's carried by the Bnei Kahas. Then you have the skin of the Mishkan, the hides of the Mishkan. That is carried by the Bnei Gershon. And then you have, of course, the beams, the poles, the bars. That is carried by the Bnei Merari. They carry the bones of the Mishkan. Says the Nefesh HaChaim, Mamish davar ayam v'noira. He says from the Zohar HaKadosh on your sheets number 7, this is the Nefesh HaChaim in Shar Aleph, Perek Daled, that the lave of a person, you know what that's like? That's like the Even HaShasiyah. That's like the foundation stone. That is the center point of the whole world. Just like the Even HaShasiyah is the center of the world, what is the world? Olam Katan, man is the world. What is the center of man's world? His heart. And the Nefesh HaChaim says an amazing thing, scary thing. Says in the 3rd paragraph, Im Kain, Be'ez asher yasur ha'adam lachshav b'vavai. If a person allows himself to entertain the thoughts of machshava asher lo tahira keniyov, rachmana litzlan. Let's say a person allows his heart to entertain thoughts of adultery, chas v'shalom, immorality. You know what that's like? That's like taking a zayna, taking a harlot, and bringing the zayna into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Say, Kodesh HaKadoshim, I'm just having a thought. No! Because your mind, your lave, your mayach is the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So if you entertain improper thoughts, you're bringing the zayna into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Says the Nefesh HaChaim, you think what Titus did was bad because he took a zayna and did the Oisai Avera in the Kodesh HaKadoshim? That's nothing! Because he just brought it into the Semel, the Mashal. The Beis HaMikdash is just the Mashal to man. So what did Titus do already? So he went into the model. You know, you have like a Lahavdil Alpha Abdallas, but you have a science fair, and they make the solar system. That's just a model of the sun and the moon. So obviously the Beis HaMikdash was a Makayim Kadosh She'en Kamayu. But nevertheless, it's only a mashal to the Kedusha of man. So what did Titus do already? He brought the Zayin into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. That's nothing compared to if a Jew allows his thought to have immoral thoughts. Says the Nefesh HaChaim, V'chein kol chet asher kol ish Yisrael machnes b'libay eish zara bekas oy shari tavis rois. If you're about to get angry, think about the following. Would you ever in your right mind go into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, take out the Aron with the Kruvim, and chas v'shalom, take a blowtorch and destroy the Aron? Oh, nobody would do that. Even the Jew furthest from the Torah would never do such a thing. Would you ever go to the Aron with a sledgehammer? Chas v'shalom, we can't even say such a thing. You have to know, says the Nefesh HaChaim, when a person allows the fire of kas to burn in his heart, you know what that is? Says the Navi Yeshaya, Beis Kodshenu v'Tifartenu Haya l'Sreifas Eish. It's like burning down the Beis HaMikdash. It's like taking the Sefer Torah and cutting it up. Chas v'shalom. Harachamon Yisbarach Shema Yatzilenu. God save us from such a thing. So says the Nefesh HaChaim, when a Jew wants to know what's the criteria, can I look at something? Can I read something? Can I think about something? Just think. If you were the Kohen Gadol going into the Kodesh HaKadoshim on Yom Kippur, would you bring that book into the Kodesh HaKadoshim? Would you bring that thing that you're thinking about into the Kodesh HaKadoshim? Would you go in bekas? You have to know, if you wouldn't go into the Kodesh HaKadoshim bekas, kavachomer, ben benoishel kavachomer. You can't think about it. You can't entertain those possibilities. And it just occurred to me that it's very possible. You know, Chazal say that when Hashem destroyed the Beis HaMikdash, Hashem vented His anger al eitzim ha'avanim. That Hashem did us a favor. Instead of Chas Hashem turning His wrath on the Jewish people, He burnt down the Beis HaMikdash. How in any way is that a replacement? Well, you're angry at someone, you want to punish somebody. So instead of punishing them, you break something. Well, if you're angry at them, you're angry at them. If you're not angry, what is breaking some other item? How in any way are you venting your anger on that? You know what the answer is? Rabbi Glatstein is saying, watch out. Because instead of venting my anger on you, I only vented it on your reflection, on your model. In other words, you're next. You're next. It's a message. Because the Beis HaMikdash is us. Hashem is taking it out on us. But Baruch Hashem, not mamish us, only the Beis HaMikdash, which is our reflection. So the Nefesh HaChaim is teaching us an amazing thing. That man, and he quotes the Zohar HaKadosh, who tells us that every single limb and part and aspect of man is alluded to somewhere in the Beis HaMikdash. Somewhere. He says, Mechalek Bazayar, Klal Tavnis HaMishkan V'Kelav. The Zayar delineates every aspect of the Beis HaMikdash, Shehema Remuzim Kulam Ba'adam. They are all alluded to a man. Echad Bi'echad Yigshu Keseder. Each one alone has a separate order. Says the Nefesh HaChaim. Take a look on the next column. He says, Lazois, on the second paragraph, Harei ki vadai, Iker Inyan HaKodesh V'HaMikdash. The main Inyan of the Beis HaMikdash and the Kodesh, Ushri Ashchinasa Yisbarach, and God dwelling, Hu Ha'adam, that is man. The real Beis HaMikdash is man himself. The Mishkan is only a semel, is only a paradigm, is only an example, is only something to allow your mind to understand who you are. Says the Nefesh HaChaim, Shem Yiskadesh Atzmai Karoi. If a person sanctifies himself properly, B'kiyam HaMitzvos Kulan, by fulfilling the mitzvos, Shehem Tluyim Gamkein B'Sharshan Ha'elyon, then Hashem says, V'shachanti B'Soicham, I will dwell in you. Nefesh HaChaim continues. That's the meaning of Chazal. Chazal say, B'chein tasu, and so should you make. What do Chazal say on those words? And so you should make l'dairos, for every generation. What's the mitzvah of making the mikdash in every generation? Every person uses the mikdash as a paradigm of who they are. So you don't need the mikdash to be standing. You learn there was a Mishkan, it stood for 40 years, whether it stood for 3,000 years or it stood for 40 years. We know what it was, that's who you make yourself into a Mishkan. Says the Nefesh HaChaim, amazing words. Take a look. U'darkenu yeshleimar gamkein, shirot salomar. Al tachshavu shetachlis kavanosi hu asiyas hamikdash hachitzoni. Don't think the purpose of the mikdash was for the building. Elatedu, you should know, shekol tachlis ritzoni. The purpose of my will, betavnis hamishkan, in building the mishkan, v'chol kelav, rak lerames, is only to hint, shemimenu tiru, v'chein tasu, atem es atzmechem, that's how you should make yourselves. Shetiu atem b'maasechem, ritzuyim betavnis hamishkan. Says the Sefer Reishis Chachma. Reishis Chachma was written by Rabbi Glatstein, contemporary of the Arizal. He says the following. Where does God rest? He rests in the Jew himself. And therefore, says the Reishis Chachma in the last 5 words, 5 lines, when a person thinks that the Rebbeinu Shalom, that the creator of the universe, who the heavens cannot contain, who has no resting place, other than me, where does God live? In you. Yislahev nafshay bi'ava. Your heart should be aflame with love of Hashem. And you know what you should say to yourself, says the Reishis Chachma, am I worthy? Me, flesh and blood. Am I worthy? Afar va'efar. Me, who comes from the ground, who comes from the mud. Am I worthy that the creator of the universe should live in my house, which is me? Am I worthy of that? I gotta sweep the floors. I gotta mop the floors. I gotta clean things up. I gotta make this house worthy for the Rebbeinu Shalom. Because the Mishkan was only given as a parable, as a paradigm, to understand what is my mind, what is my heart, what is my body, what are my hands, what are my legs, who am I? Who am I? Rav Shach also quotes down this idea. And the words, you could see Rav Shach is like jumping, he can't contain himself. You know, they asked Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach about Rav Shach. You know, Rav Shach was a Gadol Hadar. You make the bracha, Shechalach mechachmasei lirev. Do you make the bracha when you see the Gadol Hadar and Rav Shach? So says Rav Shlomo Zalman, I'll tell you a bracha that there's no question you make about Rav Shach. Shekoichai gvurasai molei olam. That bracha you definitely make. Shach was a very powerful Gadol B'Yisrael. Says Rav Shach, after quoting this idea, that the Rebbeinu Shalom says, Eze bayis tivnuli, you can't build a house for me. God says, you think you could contain me in a house? So we would expect Rebbeinu Shalom to say, if you can't contain me in a house, then nothing could contain him. No, you know what contains God? Your 2 inches by 2 inches of brain in your skull. That's where the Rebbeinu Shalom. That contains Hashem. That could contain the Rebbeinu Shalom. Says Rav Shach, Hayim kach peirashnu, Parshas Terumah. Did you ever realize that that's what Parshas Terumah teaches you? Parshas Terumah tells you that you don't think God could dwell in you. You are the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Your heart is the Aron. Your lungs are the Kruvim. Your eyes, and we're going to see what are your eyes. What's your nose? What's your mouth? We're going to see all about that. Says Rav Shach, Harei Hashchina Nimtzas Kan. The Shechina is right here. Ani Meroimim Yoser Mikol Davar Meroimim. The Jew is greater. You know, you go to the Kaisel, and you're in awe. The Kaisel, it's not, you know, the Kaisel has nothing to do with the Beis HaMikdash. It's not a wall of the Beis HaMikdash. It's a wall of the Har HaBayis. It's a retaining wall. And you go there, everybody's quiet, everyone is Derech Eretz. You're very serious, very somber, because you're by a wall that is near a wall of the Beis HaMikdash. You're not even by the Beis HaMikdash. You're by the wall of the Har HaBayis. And the respect, you should know, that wall, that's your friend's skin. The way you stand in awe of respect for the Kaisel, that's only so you have an inkling of who is a Jew. What is a Jew? So Rabbi said we have over here, mamish, an unbelievable thing. The Zohar tells us that every aspect of the human being is alluded to in a different part of the Mishkan. So we have over here a sefer called Oyel Yehoshua. And I heard something from the Oyel Yehoshua. Oyel Yehoshua is written by Rabbi Yehoshua Heller. I'm thinking, where in the world am I going to get the sefer Oyel Yehoshua from? So I remember 25 years ago, I was at my grandparents' house, and on a tall shelf, there was a little sefer that I thought had in it all the svarim of Rabbi Yehoshua Heller. Now first let me tell you who's Rabbi Yehoshua Heller. Yehoshua Heller was a contemporary of Rabbi Yisrael Salanter. He's a student of the Nachlas David. Rabbi Yehoshua Heller had a brother, Rabbi Chiel Heller, the Amudei Ar. I'll tell you a little story about their mother. Their mother was considered, she was a daughter of a tremendous Talmid Chacham, and she was Asidin L'Gedula. Everybody knew that this woman, she was exceptionally brilliant, Sanua. She was going to marry one of the Gedolei Yisrael. And when she became of marriageable age, someone spread a rumor about her that she did something improper, and her entire reputation was destroyed. And as much as she tried to deny it, the more she denied it, the more the rumor spread. She didn't know what to do. She says, she goes to the corner of the room. She says, Ribbon Shalom, I don't know why this is happening to me. I don't know why I'm so afflicted, so insulted, but I have Amunah that it's L'Taiva. If I am not Zoicha to marry a Talmid Chacham, at least allow my children to be Talmid Chachamim. So she wants to get married. Who's going to marry her? They proposed a wagon driver to her. Even the wagon driver, she wasn't even right for the wagon driver. But the wagon driver had a shamish, the assistant wagon driver, who didn't know an aleph from a beis. She marries the wagon driver. And her entire life, she went around saying the following tefillah. V'la'aluvas nefesh toishia. God save the afflicted soul. God save the afflicted soul. She marries this wagon driver. She has 4 boys. 4 all-time great Gedolei Hadar. Rabbi Yehoshua Heller, Rabbi Chiel Heller. Now if you look in the tshuvas of Rabbi Chiel Heller, every tshuva is signed off, Ha'olov Yechiel Heller, the afflicted one, Yechiel Heller, in memory, in honor of his mother's tefillah, V'la'aluvas nefesh toishia. That's one version of the story. That's one version of the story. Rav Shach had another version of the story. Rav Shach's version of the story is that one time, Rabbi Chiel Heller, there was a certain woman who was trapped in a terrible marriage, and the only way out was to do miyun. Miyun is a way out if a girl is married as a ketana. The only thing is, the Ramah says that we don't do miyun bizman hazeh. But Rabbi Chiel Heller felt that under these circumstances, as mamish shas hadchak gadol, and me'ikar adin, you're allowed to do miyun. So he mattered the woman to extricate herself from this situation through miyun, But because he went against the psak of the Ramah, he went around his whole life suffering. Because chas v'sham, what's going to be if he ever has to face the Ramah? Which is a big limud. Nowadays, people say, yeah, today women could wear tefillin, right? But the Ramah says women can't wear tefillin, right? Women say it's an isser. It is asur lahalacha. It's mamish and avera. Avera. Ramah says you have to stop them. It's an avera. To go against Ramah, the Noid of Yehuda. Noid of Yehuda has a tshuva where he has a chidush, not like the Ramah. And there is no one as great the chidush sheitar as the Noid of Yehuda. And the Noid of Yehuda, if he wanted, he could argue with the Rishon. Says the Noid of Yehuda, Mikol Makayim loy zaz mitayras Moshe. You can't budge the Ramah. If the Ramah says something, it's final. It's a closed deal. Anyway, back to the ranch. So I remember that the sefer was somewhere in my grandmother's house. So I go to my grandmother's house. She said, it's in Uncle Tzvi's house. So I went to my uncle's house. I called, where is the sefer? Do you have the sefer? Yeah, he has the sefer. It's in the basement. So I went to the basement. Where is it? RN 20-something, 22nd. I got the sefer. It was all the way behind. My uncle, Tzvi Hirschfang, if he's listening. And he lent me the sefer. I've been working on the shiur for months. I got the sefer many months ago. And but where is it in the sefer? So flipping through the sefer, I finally found what I wanted. And then last week, the Yeshiva Chafetz Chaim got this one little sefer with nekudos. I don't know where it came from, and that's what you have on your sheet over here. Says the sefer Oyel Yehoshua, Rabbi Shua Heller. Says Yehoshua Heller number 11 on the sheets, that even though, who are we to explain exactly? By the way, that's a very important lesson. Sometimes you don't know, should I buy a sefer, should I not buy a sefer, am I going to learn it? You never know who's going to learn it. You put it on the shelf, maybe somebody's going to see it, your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, your nephew, your great-nephew. Let's say there's nothing like a sefer. It doesn't, you buy food, eventually, it's no good. A sefer, it sits on the shelf for years, for decades, you never know. Anyway, so... Anyway, Rabbi says Rabbi Shua Heller, even though who are we to say exactly what part of the Mishkan corresponds to what part of the body? Says Rabbi Shua Heller, I feel that in the face of the human being are most of the kalim of the Mishkan. And you could break down the face into 3 parts. You ready for this? You have the forehead, you have the eyes and the nose, and then you have the mouth. Okay? These are the 3 parts. The forehead, the eyes and the nose, and then the mouth. The forehead protects what? What's inside? The brain, right? We hope, right? The brain. Inside the brain. That's the Kodesh HaKadoshim. That's why the Kohen Gadol puts on the forehead that sits. What does it say on the sits? Kodesh Lashem. That's your forehead. That's your brain. Your brain is Kodesh Lashem. That is the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So you got to be careful what you put in there. You got to be careful what you put in the brain. This is the criteria. If you want to know, should I look at it? Should I read it? Just this is a criteria. Would you bring it into the Kodesh HaKadoshim? Yeah, that's a good judgment system, right? Would I bring this into the Kodesh HaKadoshim? Then you have the eyes and the nose. The eyes and the nose represent the Heichal. Rabbi Sai, how many eyes do you have? 2, right? We hope 2. And then you have the nose. The menorah, the shulchan, and the mizbeach hakataras. The nose is the mizbeach hakataras. Why? Ein lecha davar pashat mizu. The nose. What do you do? What do you bring on the mizbeach hakataras? Spices. You eat the spices? No, you smell the spices. The mizbeach hakataras is smack in middle of the heichal. The nose is smack in the middle of your face. And then on the 2 sides, you have the menorah and the shulchan. The menorah and the daraim, the shulchan and the tzafay. Now, if you know what the heichal looks like, you have the menorah, you have the shulchan, but the mizbeach haktaris does not interfere right in between. You know why? Says the Gemara in Yuma. The Gemara in Yuma says like this on Daf Lamed Gimel Lamed Beis. Ba'inan dechazi lahadadi. They have to look at each other, the Gemara says. The menorah and the shulchan have to look at each other, like your eyes. Because if you had your nose in between your eyes, it would not allow for full range vision. So the same way the menorah and the shulchan have to look at each other, the eyes have to be able to see each other without the nose in between. So Hashem makes the nose down like the mizbeach haktaris. So the shulchan and the menorah are your two eyes. Rabbi say, amazing. Says Rabbi Shua Heller, of all the organs of the body, what causes us the most trouble? What causes us the most trouble? So listen to this. Says Rabbi Shua Heller. Yirmiyah Hanavi asked this question, and he answered the following. Eini oilale nafshi mika b'noisiri. Your body, Shlomo Melech says, is Ir Ketana, is a small city. Mika b'noisiri, from all the aspects of the city. Eini oilale nafshi, my eyes cause me the most trouble. First of all, all Avera, you do it, fine. But before you do it, you want it. And before you want it, you see it. Ayin Raya v'leiv chaymed. Your eyes cause you the most trouble. And besides what the eyes bring, and this is very important, that a Jew is not allowed to look at an immodest image. An immodestly clad woman, you're not allowed to look at, not just because of what might happen. It's a lav in the Torah. It's a lav. Lo yisasuru achrei levavchem yachrei einechem. The person has to know that. I'm allowed to look. I'm allowed to do whatever I want. My eyes are free. No. You can't eat chazer. You can't ingest something. You can't ingest with your eyes. You can't allow your eyes to see something, you look away. You're mekayim a mitzvah d'oraisa. You could say, hineni muchan mazuman to be mekayim a mitzvah d'oraisa. The Gemara even says, if you go to a store to look at a certain cashier, certain woman behind the cashier, you give her an extra dime to catch an extra glimpse, la yinaka midina shel gehenim. That's something that a person has to do tshuva for. So the eyes, that's one trouble your eyes could cause. That's what Yirmiyah Hanavi says. Eini oilala lenafshi mikol b'noi siri. My eyes cause me more trouble than any other parts of the body. Now the eye could cause two forms of trouble. Could gaze at immodest things, and then there's another sin of the eye. Stinginess. My money is my money, and I ain't giving it to anybody. It's for me, it's for myself, it's for I, and anything to do with me. But I don't give it out. So Chazal say, anybody who is stingy, Gemara Bava says, anyone whose eye is stingy with Tamid Chachamim, is not generous, they're going to have Ashan Be'inav. These are the two troubles of the eye. You could use your eye to gaze at immodest things. You could use your eye for stinginess. So that's why the Rebbeinu Shalom says you have to know your eyes are like the menorah and the shulchan. The menorah represents the Or Torah. What should a person do if he used his eyes for improper things? Right? Especially in this generation, perhaps the biggest challenge that a man faces. Right? Wherever you go, you're bombarded. So how does a person rectify the ayin? How do you fix the eye? So Rebbeinu Shalom says you should know. My dear son, your eye is a menorah. The menorah is the Torah. And you go to a shiur, not this year, but sometimes the shiur is not so interesting, and the eye starts to close. Yeah? When you pull that eye open and you lift it up to be involved in Torah, you're rectifying, you're cleaning, you're perfecting, you're being masaking your eye. Now you're saying my eye is like the menorah. I defiled the menorah. I'm shining the menorah. I'm polishing the menorah. I'm allowing the menorah to illuminate. When you use your eyes for the right thing, for the Ma'or Torah, for Shemen Zayisach, you're cleaning your eyes. It's like, Hatavas Haneros. Cleaning it. You're shining the menorah. You're illuminating the menorah. It's very easy to do tshuva. A person accepts upon himself that he's going to be on guard. He's going to be zealous to make sure he uses it for the right thing. And then every time you look into the Sefer, you say, I am now using the menorah. That's your eye. The menorah is not the real thing, by the way. The menorah is just a mashal. It's just a semblance of what your eye is. Your eye is the real menorah. The menorah is not going to see Hashem when he comes back to Yerushalayim. Your eyes are going to see it. La'asid lavai, who's going to see Hashem? The menorah? No. Ayin layrasa lekim zulasecha. But la'asid lavai, your eye is going to see what Hashem has in store in Olam Haba. And then for greed, the other trouble of the eye, how do you rectify greed? You give to others at your table. Ashiros, the wealth, the bounty of your possessions. You invite people to your table. You feed them. So Rebbeinu Shalom says, you have a problem with histaklus, modestly gazing. Recognize one eye is the menorah, one eye is the shulchan. The nose is the Mizbeach HaKtaros. Then let's go moving down on the face. The mouth is the Mizbeach HaOlah. Obviously. Mizbeach HaOlah, that's the altar that consumed food, that consumed all the meat. That's what your mouth is. That's what your mouth is. Yet whenever you eat, you should think, I'm not just eating food because it tastes good. I'm a Mizbeach. Rabbi Glatstein, when you learn the Parshas, Terumah, Tetzaveh, Vayakel, Pekude, this is not some kind of archaic subject. This is not some kind of thing of the past. This is you. Like we asked, does anybody even know the dimensions of their own house? No. Does anybody in their right mind ever review it again and again and again and again? No. But you know what you do all the time? You know how often you get on the scale? Right? Some people, they get on the scale before they eat, they get on the scale after they eat, before every meal, in between the meal, after like half the course, they go on the scale to see exactly how many calories they took in, and exactly after every drink, before the tinus, after the tinus, before Shabbos, after Shabbos, before the weekend. Why? Because even though you could care less about the measurements of your house, but you know exactly how tall your child was when he's 1 month, 2 months, 2.5 months, because there's nothing more interesting, more important, more worthwhile, more critical than who you are. What are you? What do you mean? When you talk, you think Hashem cares whether what I'm thinking about during Shemona Esrei? You think Hashem cares whether in the 9th bracha of Shemona Esrei I'm focusing on the words? Hashem has much more important things to worry about. No! All Hashem cares about is what is in your Kodesh HaKadoshim when you're being the Makriv, the carbon of Shachris, of Mincha, of Nara. That is the only thing in the world that Rebbe Hashem cares about. All God cares about is what you use with, right here, right eye, menorah. What you're using your menorah for. What you're using your shulchan for. What you're using your Mizbeach HaKtaros for. Your words are the Beis HaMikdash. It's like, imagine you would see the Beis HaMikdash and the pillar of smoke coming up. That's you. That's who you are. You know what the most important topic in Kol HaTorah Kula is? You can't put on tefillin if you don't know who's putting on tefillin. You can't keep Shabbos until you realize that your keeping Shabbos is like the Beis HaMikdash operating on all cylinders. It's a mind-boggling thought. You know, we read through these Parshas, we have no idea what it means. This is everything. Terumah, Tetzaveh, this is life. This is the purpose of existence. So here's the punchline. We know that how many limbs does a person have? Well, the Gemara tells us we have 613 mitzvahs. Gemara says, Masechta Makos, you have 248 limbs corresponding to the 248 mitzvahs aseh. And the Rishonim, the Mekubalim, Rabbi Chaim Vital, and others, they say that if your 248 limbs correspond to the 248 positive mitzvahs, then the 365 negative commandments correspond to your 365 sinews. That we're pretty familiar with. That just like the Torah has 613 mitzvahs, the human being corresponds to the Torah. Says Rabbi Yeshua Heller, this really got me thinking. Because based on everything we learned in the Kuzari, the Rambam, Rabbeinu Bechaye, if you look in the mirror, you know what you're going to see? Beis HaMikdash. Beis HaMikdash is your reflection. Right? That's why it's so important. There's nothing more important than me. Right? What occupies the most space in the Torah? My reflection. So says Rabbi Yeshua Heller, let me investigate the following. Even though no one ever said this before, let's start to add up all the various details of the Mishkan. Listen to what he says. Look at number 14. Number 48, he says, there are 48 krushim, there are 100 sockets, there are 10 curtains, there are 100 loops, there are 50 clasps, there are 11 curtains of goats, there are another 100 loops for that, there are another 50 clasps, there are 15 bars that go through the body of the Mishkan, 96 rings, paroiches, 4 amudim, 4 vavim, the masach, 5 amudim, 5 adonim, 5 vavim, the aron, the kaparis, the kruvim. Says Rabbi Yeshua Heller, b'siyata d'shmaya, something that loy omar adam e'olam. Nobody ever said this before. If you add up all of the details of the Mishkan, you come to 613. Ayam B'Naira. You know why? Of course. Because when you look in the mirror, you don't get anything other than you. And the Mishkan is, Rebbeinu Shalom says, make for yourself a Mishkan so that you know who you are. You realize that when you put on tefillin in the morning, I'm going to come down on the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and you use your eyes like the menorah, you use your eye like the shulchan, you use your nose like Mizbeach HaKtaras, your mouth is Mizbeach HaOlah, and every one of your 613 parts corresponds to another Davar Shebekdusha in the Mishkan. And now you're ready, V'shalchanti b'soicham, now I could dwell in you. But until you know who you are, if you don't know who you are, then why would I come to you? If you don't know who you are, then I don't know who you are. But the most important inyan in the Torah is, who are you? What is your value? What is your erech? What is your worth? You know what your worth is? Ein l'shayar. There's no value. Are my words important? Are they important? There is nothing more important. Are my thoughts important? There is nothing in the world more important. Just like there's nothing more important, is there anything more important in the world than the Kohen Gadol going into the Kodesh HaKadoshim? So if there's nothing more important than that, you should know there is. What you think about when you're walking down the street, you say, you know what? I'm going to spend 1 minute thinking about the Shiur, thinking about learning. You are doing something infinitely greater than the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. Because the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur is just to give you an inkling on who your mind is, what your mind is. Listen to this. So Rebbeinu Shalom says, K'chol asher ani mareh, not lecha, I'm not showing something to you. K'chol asher ani mareh, oischa, I am showing you. I am showing you. That's what the Mishkan is. The Mishkan is you. You are a Beis HaMikdash, you are a Kodesh HaKadoshim, you're a Menorah, you're a Shulchan. Says Rabbi Yerucham, let's just make one little tiny kavachan. If the Beis HaMikdash, which is only an example of you, brings down such intense Hashras Hashchina, after all, you know what the Mishkan is? It's like a picture. It's a picture. It's a fake. It's not the real thing. The Mishkan is only to get a mashal. It's only a microcosm of you. And if the Mishkan has such intense Kedusha, just imagine how much Kedusha you could have if you emulate Hashem and you become the real thing. And you are the real thing. And that's what Chazal say. Ha'avois heim hamarkava. It's not just referring to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. It refers to any person who purifies himself. That is the limud of Parshas Terumah, Parshas Tetzaveh, Parshas Vayakel, Parshas Pekudei. And if you want to know who does God, what does God value more than anything else in the universe, all you need to do is look at what He devotes the most attention to. You know what He values more than anything else? You. That's the lesson. V'asuli mikdash rabosai v'shachanti v'soicham. Thank you for listening.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.